Hey guys, Matt, IronTrap Garage, and today we're going to work on finishing up our dash project. So in between fitting the new Stewart Warner, new to me, Stewart Warner gauge panel into the car, getting the steering column and drop all sorted out, I think we're pretty much ready now that I'm sure I'm going to be using the holes that are in the dash, and we have all the parts that we need to move forward with this project. So I'm going to pull the dash back out, clean it up. We're going to just do a quick little sand job on it to sand the paint down and go over the welds and everything in the dash. But we're going to try and make this dash and the header panel all one color, and so we can start fitting the windshield back in and getting some of this stuff back together so we can actually wire the car, which will be really awesome, and get it one step closer to being a driver. Alright, so I got the whole dash pretty much stripped down to bare metal. I didn't worry too much about the bottom, I just scuffed it all up, so it was all in like 220 grit paper. I went ahead and went back down around this area where the weld was and hit it with 120. You could see that, probably see in the photos or the video maybe a little bit, that there's some scratching in here and stuff from when the dash was worked on previously before, like where it was leaded and stuff. I'm not going to go too crazy making this thing perfect, but I do want to kind of make this weld seam disappear a little bit so it doesn't stand out when it's all painted. So I have some Eastwood contour body filler that I just threw together. It was scrounging through my cabinets, obviously with it being stay-at-home stuff right now. Not quite as convenient to go get supplies, but I'm going to put a dash of hardener in there, or not a dash, a ribbon. Ooh, good God. Hardener. I'm going to use my, apparently I threw away all my mixing stuff. So we're going to just mix this up, put some filler on around the edges, and then we'll block it all down and just get those little grooves or low spots, little pits in the weld, or around the weld, all blended out. But just to be honest, I might actually use my finger for some of this just to get it smudged into the into these little spots, because I don't want to put a ton around the holes or fill anything up too crazy. So sometimes it's easier just to smudge it into the low spots in the weld, and then I'll come back and but like I said, I'm just trying to get rid of these little tiny pits in the weld, so I don't want to go crazy putting a huge coat of filler over this whole thing, because I really don't want to block the whole thing out. So just by going over the weld, trying to keep away Just use a good old-fashioned finger. Now this isn't what I would use on the quarter panel of a car if you're trying to make it perfectly flat, but for something like this where we're just trying to get rid of the lows in the weld, it's perfectly fine. Works fine for me. And if I'm quick enough here, I can come back through and take any of the excess off here. Alright, so the filler kick that I started blocking it out, I just have 80 grit on a small little Durablock that I'm using here. And I'm trying to take 99% of this off. I just want the right around the weld here where there's any little pits or low spots, so it'd be super obvious to fill those in. I'm sure there's a little bit of waves in the panel from when we did the hole punches. It does affect the panel a little bit, but they're all hidden by the insert, so it's not a big deal. Alright, so I got the dash all blocked down and everything's in bare metal, and also did the glove box lid, and I realized that I had to do the header panel over here, and I hadn't done that yet. So I went to strip it down thinking it wouldn't be too bad. It turned out to actually be more work than just the dash was. It was painted in the factory like red oxide primer. It had a black on it, it had a white on it, it had a red on it, like the GM red, and then I think there was a white over top of it. Maybe there's only one coat of white, but anyways, there was a bunch of coats, and that red, GM red, the Corvette red that I think is on the car, was really gummy. When I tried to sand it, it just fought me. So I did a combination of media blasting and moving it mechanically, and it worked out. It just took a little bit extra time. So I got everything prepped, wiped down, and we're ready to start spraying this stuff. So what I'm going to be using is to prime it, just because it's a small job and I'm kind of lazy, to be honest. I don't feel like cleaning the paint gun multiple times. I'm going to be using the 2K Aerospray epoxy primer from Eastwood. This is the same thing as you would spray out of a gun. It's just in a can, requires no cleanup. So I already popped the bottom here and started shaking it up, so it's pretty much ready to go. Then I'm going to be spraying it with some Eastwood single stage urethane paint. That actually, the GM Polar White is the color that I chose because I think it's kind of goes with the flow of what everything else that was done with it. It might have actually been the color it was sprayed originally when they redid the dash and some of those other parts. So I'm going to get to spraying this with epoxy primer. I'm going to probably do maybe 2 coats, maybe 3, to get everything sealed up and hopefully fill some of the scratches and stuff in the dash and these different panels. And then once that's dry, we'll just do a quick scuff of it and then mix up some paint and spray that GM Polar White. It'll be looking good real soon. Alright, so after letting the epoxy primer sit overnight, I'm just going to go over it with some 600 grit just to knock down any of the texture and get it all prepped for spraying our single stage urethane. Alright, see, I'm going to try and get a shot here of the texture. A real light texture with the epoxy primer. And when you come all the way over here where I'm starting to sand it, it's quite a bit smoother just with this quick run over with the 600 grit. So just knocking that light texture off the top will help big time. Let me get back into here. You can hopefully see there's a little bit of texture there. When you get out into where I sanded, it's a little nice and smooth. So that's all I'm doing is just knocking it down real quick. Not doing anything crazy, but that shows you the difference really quickly. Alright, so I got all my paint goodies here. As we mentioned, I'm using a GM Can-Am or Polar White. They call it a couple different things, but this is just a single stage urethane that Eastwood sells that works really nice. I thought it was a good white that kind of went with the whole theme of using GM colors that they used, that Barry had used back in the day. So it's a 3-to-1 paint, so I'm going to mix this up first. And then we'll pour some into the cup, mix our activator in, and strain it into the paint gun, and be on our way. Alright, so got the dash all mounted in with the steering column, the steering wheel. We got the windshield mounted. I ended up having my buddy Justin stop by, and we did some social distancing on either side of the car as we mounted the windshield frame in place. I got it really close, but it's such a tight fit, and also the windshield seal is just all shrunken and kind of out of shape, but I still wanted to get something in the car for now so we can keep moving forward. But I couldn't get that windshield sitting right, so that it closed all the way on my own. So in between the last couple shots, there was like a day has passed by, and we got that done the other night, and I'm really psyched. So the dash looks like spot on. Really happy with the color of it. It's a pretty darn close match, and I think my hunch was right that that was probably the color they used on the interior parts, was this GM color. The color is slightly brighter because the dash is clean and fresh paint, but when you look at the two of them together, they're really, really close, and I'm sure when this was sprayed originally, it was probably exactly the same color. So what I'll do eventually down the road, once we get the car like driving and I can just tackle some of these smaller projects, is I'll probably pull all the garnish molding out, because it's all chipping, and the paint obviously that was done to it years ago, they didn't really prep it that good, so it's kind of just peeling and chipping off now. So we'll probably prep everything, epoxy prime it, and then spray it in some more of that that fresh single stage urethane from Eastwood, and it'll match the dashboard. But dashboard's all hooked up, switch, key switch, everything's in there, it's good. I'm happy. Even the steering wheel and everything's all mounted up securely. Our steering column tube worked out really, really good. The gap is like perfect, so when you look in the car, it doesn't look awkward. So a lot of work went into this, but I'm really happy with how it came out. And finally, the interior pretty much looks how it's going to look. I didn't put the header panel in yet because I need to take a short time to decide what I'm going to do with the windshield wiper setup. I don't know if I have the complete setup that we found in the car or not. I can't remember. And also kind of going back and forth if I want to use a vacuum wiper, if we just go to like a slightly later 50s, 60s era upgraded electric wiper that you would have seen people starting to offer like later in time. But either way, I'll probably get that mounted up pretty soon either way, even if we don't have the wiper in, just so I can mock up some brackets for the for those kick-ass pleated visors, which will be really cool. But next step for this car is to make this thing start and drive inside the car, so I don't have to do all the janky wires and jump stuff. So we're going to work on doing some wiring for this car next. This and the 39 are kind of like at similar points, so I'm bouncing back and forth. So we're doing wiring on the 39 and the dashboard on that. We're going to be doing the same on this. So we'll be doing some wiring. I want to get the key wired up to the ignition so that we can start this thing in the car and I can move it in and out of the shop. And at the same time, also be working on getting some of the cooling systems together. So really exciting. If things go as planned, I might have this car on the road by the time this whole virus thing is over. I may have a car that I can start taking out the cruise-ins and stuff once everything's back to normal again, which will be really awesome. So thank you guys for following along on this build. It's been a ton of fun. This is probably one of the most rewarding things I've done on the car yet, because it put my own little spin on the dashboard situation, but also I think now that it's all painted and done, it looks like it could have been done back in the day. And if you didn't know any better, you would think that this is how it came when they hot rodded it, when Barry was hot rodding it back in the early to mid 60s. So thank you guys for watching. Appreciate it. Catch you later.